company culture, talking about all things culture, because I wrote a new book. I updated my first one into a second edition called The Power of Company Culture. And I thought there's no better way, there's no better thing I can think of to do than to call up my good friends who inspire me, who do amazing work inside of culture, to have as many conversations as we can. Almost 31, I think we're actually going to get to, and talk about all things culture. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about connection. We're talking about recognition, but I want to introduce Sarah. Sarah, why don't you tell everyone who you are, what you do, where you're at, what's important to know about you?
Oh, let's see if we can shortlist it. So I'm Canada's recognition expert. I'm the Chief Recognition Officer here at Greatness Magnified. We get a chance to hang out with really cool humans in every industry who care very much about their culture and know that recognition is a key, probably the easiest way in which we can make an imprint in our culture starting right away. And what I love about it, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot about it, is that every single person can create the culture that they want to belong to through recognition. So this is like, there's nothing than speak with you about this today as it relates to your new book. Congratulations.
Well, thank you so much. And, you're 100% right that everyone can impact their culture, but specifically they can impact recognition, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's really no excuse.
No excuse.
There's no excuse to not be thinking about recognition. And this was a big aha moment for me in my company when I realized that we were doing recognition top down. And meaning it was the manager's job, the boss's job to recognize people and to pat them on the back and tell them good job. And that's an important part of the equation. But like the whole system was set up as if the boss didn't say something, then no one said anything. Right. So I certainly have some examples, but how do you suggest sort of creating that, whether it's a holistic view or bottom up or whatever it is, so that everyone's doing it?
Yeah, well, one of the things I think that's so powerful about pointing out that we as leaders often impose it on ourselves, that we have to be the ones to recognize. And that's tied to the research that people leave bosses rather, as the number one reason. So we kind of feel like, well, it's up to us to keep people. Not only that, we're all often the ones who manage and oversee the data too. So we literally see it's right in front of us about the stakes are high if we don't do it. I like to encourage leaders, though, not only is it not sustainable if only you were doing it, you're wearing a lot of hats, you had a lot of things going on, things can pop out of nowhere like a pandemic that all of a sudden you have to change your leadership style, rise to the challenge. So it's literally not sustainable. So yes, thank you for caring enough about your people that you want to be the recognition champion, but I would see it that way. See yourself as the one who has to role model it, be as consistent as possible, encourage it, enable it, and encourage others to create that recognition ripple effect. So when you compliment somebody and say, if somebody inspires you, pass it on, write them a note, or why don't you give them a shout out at the next team meeting? So we actually as leaders don't have to just be the ones recognizing. We can be the ones inspiring the next act of recognition, the next micro trend of recognition in teams and organizations.
Yeah, I found that we really had to kind of like institutionalize it and create like actual structure around it, like rules and structure and like behaviors and norms and like practices. I mean, I've been in places where, people do the snaps, or they have they have a way in which there's a specific way that people like them at their company actually do the recognition, right? And it's something that gets taught to them, that gets talked about. And so, or at least it's happening so much, it's pretty easy for people to figure out. And I found that was like the only way in which we could really create that kind of real recognition, that real, I guess, pattern, right? So that people would do it, was to teach them, here's what you're expected to do. And what we did is we had these green flags. So in our water cooler room in Slack, we taught everybody, if someone does something to help you, if you notice someone did something awesome, go in and put a little green flag and say, hey, great job to Sarah. She helped me out with this client and saved the day. And then everyone else's job was just to go in there and go, green flag, way to go, yay, high five, whatever. Just cheer them on it if you happen to be around at that moment in time. That was step one, right? Here's how you do it. Step two, which is where I think leaders or organizations fail, was that we would talk about that in their reviews. Are we seeing you recognizing people? Are you living out that value for us in your day-to-day work? Or are you sitting on the sideline and you're not telling anybody they did a good job, right? How important is it that we sort of make it, I guess, more institutionalized sounds like the wrong word, but more a part of the day-to-day fabric of the culture?
Yeah. Well, culture in a nutshell, this is how I describe it. I would love to hear how you nuance it. It's how we do things around here. That's, if we bottom line it. So how we do things around here related to recognition, it can look like a variety of different things. So I like the idea of what you're talking about is you want to set the stage somehow. You need to start somewhere. If you have a very strong emphasis in your culture around communicating through Slack, then why wouldn't you include recognition opportunities through that and encouraging people to use that as your communication method? I have another client out of Montreal. They have an internal communication system that's built, they're a call management. So there's a very structured system in how they work. So they built in the complementing card system that if people are physically together, they use these complements. They've built it into their digital communication system because that's how they communicate in that organization. Right. And there's other ones too. So I like what you're saying around, we have to teach people how to get started. We have to give people some anchors, and then we have to get out of people's way. We want to say, so how would you do it? What feels right for you? Because one of the arch enemies of a truly how we do things around here recognition rich culture is that people feel it's forced and fake. There's favoritism, any of those things. Now we can kind of get hung up in our own head about that. So there's the perceived worry side of it that we want to push to the side and push past it. And when it's too forced, when it's too rigid, there's that balance of we want folks to be able to find a way to iterate it. And so there's this really fun example. One of my friends, her daughter, they give each other, I guess they love this particular macaroni and cheese type of brand. So they give it it's the Mac Award. So you physically give the box of this super cheap macaroni and cheese to the person. And they just give it to their programmers. They don't want to have a big, long conversation. They just hand it. That's their way of doing, good job. They just hand them the box. So they came up with that because they all, turns out, love this macaroni and cheese brand, and they don't want to talk about it. So I love the idea that you set the stage and then you encourage people to find the way that works for their team and their organization. And then to keep changing it up, because nobody wants anything that's stale. Bread stale, croissant stale, cake stale, recognition stale. That can kill your recognition culture as well, as if people feel like it's kind of, we're done with that. Never be done with it. Never.
Yeah. So at the company level, it feels like we can be good recognizers. We can call it out. We can essentially use, words of affirmation, right? Words that can do that. But what you're talking about is a great example, because there's more than one way to recognize someone. Mm-hmm. Words of affirmation isn't always that person's primary preferred way to be recognized. Some people do want gifts. Some people do want a high five or a hug or whatever. I mean, there's lots of different ways. And of course, at work, what's appropriate, not appropriate, and all that. But like we just say about in humans in general. So that the example you gave about them giving the box, I'll bet you a lot of those people like the reward, right? And they like the small moment of being recognized. They maybe don't need the words of affirmation. It's here's the box. Everyone saw you get the box. Now they feel good. But to your point, that was built out of does that smaller group, that subculture need?
Yeah.
And that is so important for leaders to figure out, to ask your people, what's the best way for us to recognize each other? What does that feel like? And half the team is like, I would just love it if you put a Diet Coke on my desk when I did something great.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, your job has gotten really easy. Or if it's, hey, I really enjoy being pulled up in front of everyone at the meeting every Monday, and I want you to sing my praises for 10 minutes. That'll fill up my cup. Okay, let's figure that out, right?
Right.
Yeah. The challenge is that's hard, right? As a leader, it's hard, right? To manage all those different types of things and what everybody wants, it doesn't want. Extroverts, introverts. I mean, you call me up on the stage. It's the best day of my life.
Yes.
My friend next to me is the introvert. It's like, can I hide under the stage? Right.
Yes.
It's so varied that can be hard for a leader.
Well, and we certainly see that. We hear that all the time. In fact, sometimes I kind of joke around like, people would rather flee this room than come up here and be acknowledged by somebody. And so many people put up their hand there. It's almost like, see, look at me. Do not be doing that ever. And I love that. Again, part of being culturally, I'm trying to use the word sensitive, but that means something different in our world right now. To be aware as a culture about, what people need is to ask the question and to also observe, sort of what works, what doesn't work. And we actually have a tool that we created called a recognition checklist. It's on my website, greatnessmagnified.com, under cool stuff. And people can download it. It's 2 pages. I use it with my team. And it's everything from, on a scale of 1 to 5, to what extent do you like gifts? A coffee brought to you, a shout out at a team meeting, private note. And then on the back side, it talks about, to what extent do you want it to be planned surprise, individual, team. Because again, some people, they want to be public, but they want it to be planned. They don't want it to be a surprise. So this for some people, like, what? Now I've got so many permutations. This is overwhelming. And say, no, all we have to do is ask people. So if you've got this superstar that you want to acknowledge, you just go to that recognition checklist and say, looks like they wanted to be on the stage. They wanted to be planned. I probably should give them a heads up. And they also like coffee. So I'm going to walk on stage and say, hey, I've invited, I've invited Jim up to the stage. By the way, Jim, here's your green tea double with half a sweetener. Gotta say, Jim, I don't know how you picked that, but here you go. Cheers to you. You could literally make it really fun and quirky, or very, very minimal, but meaningful and impactful, by simply knowing what people want. You don't have to be mind readers. We can ask people.
Yeah, absolutely. And it amazes me how maybe we're not going to be the best at it. That's okay. Maybe as a leader, you're not going to be the best leader of all time at recognizing your people, but you can at least be good. You can at least begin to try and begin to put some of that in. And man, does it have a huge impact on how we feel. Now, to go the other direction, I have this case study in my book, because when I was looking at recognition, I knew what I did, and it felt good and it felt right. But I thought, what else are people doing? And there was a lot of examples. And I thought, is there a successful program? Is there something that people do that's wildly successful, that is the total opposite? It's not what I would do at all, because I wanted to sort of introduce that as well. And I found a great example with Caesars Entertainment. They have an entire recognition program that is built around rewards. They have an entire shop, people earn points, and they can go and buy things. To their point, they may be able to buy something for their kids they could never afford by sort of banking all these recognition points. And the reason their program works is that it is the customer who is giving them the recognition, which turns into points. It is not their fellow employee. It's not their manager. There's a outside third party who's independent, where you can't game the system. It's really hard. You can't like get a bunch of employees together and they all give each other recognition and now you get your $5 gift card. We've seen a lot of that sort of abuse with some of those programs in companies. But this is like independent. So if you wrote on a card, wow, the housekeeping was great, the valet was really nice, the concierge really helped me out, their entire department gets points for that one person's actions, and they all get to go spend them in this like giant store. Again, not how I would do recognition, but at a huge company, large scale, they have a huge success with that, right?
Yeah.
And very much higher employee satisfaction rates than most of the other sort of similar casinos, down on the strip or in different places. So have you seen other types of programs like I'm describing that's different than sort of the, I don't know, maybe more grassroots sort of programs that we started talking about?
Yeah. Every organization has their own stamp, and that's what I think is so great about people who are committed to this, is that they find a way for it to fit their culture. One of my favorite examples is, or most favorite, events that I spoke at this year was Pure. So they have a President's Awards, and the people who are the winners, they know in advance. So they are invited to come, and they're able to bring a family member or a friend. They're flown in from across the country and they attend. It's a beautiful meal that they put on. They invite a member of their organization to be the MC. So they give somebody a leadership role who likely isn't. They're just, it's not, oh, the comms person should do this. They ask around and they say, who's a great communicator? So that's an opportunity to recognize. And then what they do is they live stream it to everybody in the whole organization. So anyone who wants to join and be part of that celebration can join. And they do everything possible to enable that to happen, so that, because they know for that hour in the organization, 15,000 people, we want as many people to be part of this acknowledgement as possible. And then they provide incentives. For the sake of, they may not want me to talk about what they are, but the point is, it's the experience that people talk about, because 18 people are able to get that President's Award. However, they try to make it a very inclusive space. So you feel very honored to get it. And it's the peers who tell the president's office why that person should get it. So one individual collects codes across Montreal. I keep using Montreal examples, and these are for displaced persons. So that's what he does. It has nothing to do with the company. And yet, how did they find out about it? His peers know, because the peers were, could you come and help me collect codes? Do you have codes? So it became a bit of a thing that they would do as a team, and they'd feel really good as a team about it. And then eventually somebody said, well, maybe we should see if we can use the trucks on the weekend to be able to bring them out. So it became this wonderful opportunity for people to learn about these little hidden, beautiful things that are happening across this really physically spread out organization, all doing different work. And people feel so proud about that. So, that's one of many examples. And another courier company may have something completely different, or they don't do it and they should. But just like your Caesars example, your example, this one, the I-24 example, the call management organization, there is no right way to do it. What I think so much of what we've been talking about is it's important to understand rewards and recognition. Rewards are obviously the paycheck. We're not volunteers, right? The paycheck, the gift card, the bringing in the coffee, the pizza party, the awards, those are rewards. Like the store that you're referring to. Recognition are the acknowledgements from the customer in your Caesars example. It's the shout out from the peers. It's your peers deciding that you get the box of macaroni and cheese. So the words of acknowledgement, the connection, you talked about connection earlier, and that we wanted to touch on that. That's what builds relational currency. The words of acknowledgement, taking a moment to check in with people, saying, why they matter to you, the impact that they're making. And then rewards are transactional currency. This is reinforcing your extrinsic motivation to meet the expectations of the culture, of your colleagues, of your job requirements. And the recognition is intrinsic motivation, my values, my strengths, what matters to me. And we can, I think we've been talking about all these examples that when they work, it's both. It's both. It's not just one. And even if you're a not-for-profit, you can still do rewards with a whole bunch of recognition. If you're for-profit, be careful to not be overly focused on bonuses and not really do the recognition, because other people can give people a bigger bonus, they can make more commission elsewhere, or it's going to create this unintended consequence around competition and no teamwork. So it's actually an amazing opportunity to look at and say, I wonder what parts are reward and I wonder what parts are recognition. And is that the right combination for the health of this organization and what we stand for?
You know, you bring up a great point, and I've worked with a few clients that were so overly focused on bonuses, and there had to be these thing, and I couldn't get them away from that. But what I was able to do was convince them to add into the matrix of what they gave bonuses for. What are their employee satisfaction scores for their managers, right? Do people like working there? Are they giving out recognition, right? Like those should be a part of the goals that are a part of deciding whether or not you're going to get a bonus, not just, did I hit my number, or did the company hit this number that's about profit and growth? And those things are extremely important. But if you also want a great culture and want a great place to work, there has to be a place for rewarding people for doing the things that we value, right? And if we value recognition, we value great culture, we want people to enjoy working here, then that should be a part of the equation of when we decide you get a bonus, you get a raise, or you get a promotion. It shouldn't just be, we told you to go get $1 million in new business, you got $1.5 million, well, you get a bonus, right?
Yes.
Let's forget the fact that you treated everyone like shit. You totally were a terrorist to the customer service and the onboarding department. You yelled and screamed at people to get there, but you made your number and then passed it, right? And there has to be more to it than that.
Absolutely. And, you know, a very important nuance that I picked up from your example with Caesars is that the customer, yes, it's the customer who decides, and because now you're reinforcing the customer experience is what we're all about. And that's the differentiator of us versus other people that they could go and they could work with. So just the nature of, as you say, who are the ones who put your name into the pool. The other important thing I heard was the team gets rewarded, because how many times have you and I gone to a store somewhere that we're getting service of some kind for, and they say, could you please write me a good review? Could you please, tell my manager about me? And I'm sure we would have done that anyway, but then all of a sudden it seems like, oh, I thought you wanted to serve me. And actually it's just to be able to it's transactional. So so now I feel like I need to, and I'm Canadian, so we always have to do the things that people want us to do. But the point is, it's like, if I know it's about the team, then I say, we, not I, we always want to do well by our clients. We always want to make sure that people get great service. We would love it if you gave us a Google review. We would love it if you shared what your experience was like working with valet services. Not me, we. And people will probably mention that person. Ironically, they'll mention that individual as well as the whole team.
Well, and what I also loved about the team example was that they were really dealing with, they wanted people to do the right thing and to make things happen all the time, not just when the customer would notice, right? And so by giving the points to the whole team, that reinforces, you may go do that favor for Bob and go and grab the bags, and no one sees you do that thing. So Bob can go be amazing for that client. And if that client appreciates it, they all get the reward, right? And so you're not reinforcing this behavior of, like, to your point, I'm going to go do this thing. And it's sort of, it feels dirty, not dirty, but like doesn't feel authentic, right? Because I'm just doing it because I'm trying to get you to fill out a survey or give me points or whatever. No, we hope you do that, but like, we're all going to work together, whatever that means, to make sure the customer is serviced and given what they, more than what they expect.
And it's a balance of providing enough incentive. If we're externally reinforcing a behavior or a culture, so through rewards, we want to match that reward to what we value. So, in the example of that individual who ran over basically everybody's joy at work to be able to close that extra, get over that $1 million of sale. And so much of the way in which we incentivize people is through financial, but then we have this little thing over here called like the team cheer award. Nobody's going to pay attention. Just because you have that other thing, you're again, the nature of what you proportionally demonstrate you value will also speak volumes. So look at not necessarily even the budget of what you have for recognition, although I would still say that people should have not just a rewards budget, a recognition budget. Also consider what is the ratio. And here's a way to look at it. Assume you're new, you're joining the organization. What gets rewarded? Because what gets rewarded gets repeated. So if this brand new person is going to do everything that we reward, what will they be doing? And, because the opposite of what you gave us, that example of that person who's commission-based and it's all about the money, the opposite can happen, and we've seen, and that is long service. So what does that say to new people who want to innovate, people who are very focused on quality of delivery, not just time on the job? So there's all kinds of ways in which we've done rewards and to some extent recognition as well, historically, that need to be reevaluated because it doesn't fit the employee journey of today, and it doesn't necessarily fit with the expectations. If your customer would not want that to be rewarded over that, that's telling. If your new employee would say, really, I'm not sure if I want to be part of an organization that puts so much stake in that. Right. These are some of your tells that we need to re-look at what we're doing in the organization and put ourselves in the shoes of the customer, put ourselves in the shoes of the new staff member, put ourselves in the shoes of the student, put ourselves in the shoes of the supplier. What advice would they give? What impression might they get? Because we know that we can't, as an organization, deliver on our promises to all of those stakeholders if we don't have consistency in what we say we're going to do. We have to be able to do. Businesses are, the lifespan of a business is shorter than ever before. It just takes one negative interaction for that to be up on Glassdoor or Google reviews. So we have to be particularly diligent, and between stay interviews we can ask with employees who are there, to also looking at that big picture perspective on if our customers, our suppliers and so forth knew that this is how we reinforce and recognize people, what might they think about our culture? Because probably they're seeing that the downward stream effects of whatever we've chosen to reward.
Absolutely. So again, everyone, what you reward is what gets repeated. I love that phrase. Thank you for reminding us all of that. And I hope everyone got some bit of wisdom here today to help you with your recognition programs, to help you create more connection at work. And I hope everyone will consider checking out my new book, The Power of Company Culture, 2nd edition, out on Halloween. It is the perfect trick or treat. So you can pre-order now or pick it up on that day. Sarah, it's always lovely to chat with you. I know you've been on the radio show before, the podcast, and now with this crazy 31 days, I was really glad that you could be a part of it. So thank you so much. I am now going to go brave the deep cold of Vancouver. It's 41 degrees, which for an Orange County guy is like, deep winter. So yes. I may need to borrow your scarf.
It's snowing in Calgary right now, so just be glad you're one province over. Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah, a little too cold for me, but
yeah.
All right, thank you so much for being here. Lovely to see you, and I hope that you're well and have a great rest of your year.
Thank you. You too. Congrats on the book.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.